Well, Steve, um, I've been thinking about writing this thing on Julie Wilson, and I'm always so swamped with what I'm trying to do, getting all these last collections together and working, with the editors, getting this next novel ready to go. And so I thought, well, I could video it because, and maybe you can use that. I don't know. But at any rate, here's the story. Gary and I owned a bookstop shop down in Omaha for a number of years. I guess I need to back up to my 16th birthday. I wanted, in the worst way, a 45 RPM record player. That was all the rage. And everything was coming out on 45s instead of the old 78s. And I'd only had a 78 crank-up record player, an old Edison Victrola that I inherited from my grandparents. But it would play, Bing Crosby and all the latest 78 RPMs, Ella Fitzgerald, all that stuff. But the thought of having an electric, a little bitty 45 RPM you could stick things on and play, 7, 8 records without having to turn them over. This was before long play, of course, and high fidelity. And my parents weren't very rich. My dad worked for Puget Sound Power and Light and as an inspector, and my mother, I think at that time she was working as a clerk in Penny's over in Enumclaw, or maybe the Meisenbach variety store in Buckley. I don't remember, but they didn't make much money in those days. It's 54 maybe. Maybe it's probably 54. But it turned out that there was a hardware store in our town that also dealt with radios, table radios, and a few record players, and all sorts of things. It wasn't just hardware. And he had ordered special for a person in Buckley, a 45 RPM record player and a host of boxed editions of Nat King Cole classical music, Hosea Turby at the piano, Broadway and show tune hits, all sorts of wonderful things. And I don't know what this originally came to, but the person died and never picked it up, and he'd had it so he sold it to my mother, I think the whole thing for $15. Which is incredible when you think of it. I mean, we're talking just a library of music like this. Well, tucked away in it was some of the music from New Faces, 1952, where Eartha Kitt made such a big hit. But also Julie Wilson, made her debut, or a major part anyway. She'd been in lots of other venues, on Broadway by then. So I was familiar with her voice, and then, of course, there was some music from Pajama Game, I think the British production, in which Julie Wilson sang. And, of course, Julie Wilson had been on the Ed Sullivan Show, over the years, and she had done some television, even been on some soap operas as a regular, and so I sort of knew who Julie Wilson was. And I had seen her on TV, so I knew what Julie Wilson looked like. So Gary and I had a bookstore in Omaha, and late, always in the afternoon, I forget, on a Thursday maybe, just as we were ready to close, this woman would come rushing in, and she wanted to go through cards, to mail cards to people. We carried some really snappy, sophisticated, expensive cards, for dashing off notes to people and things like that. Matthews had good stationery, good cards, books, chess games, stuff like that. So when it was always like 5 minutes before we were going to close, and she would always plead and saying, "This is the only time off I have." And one time I said, "Well, what's up with you?" And I was beginning to recognize her face and her voice. And she said, "Well, I came back to Omaha to take care of my mother, who's been very ill, and And a visiting nurse or somebody would come on a Thursday afternoon, giving her some time off, and she liked to come down and buy cards. So we started staying open a little late, and we'd always have coffee with her and bring her a cup of coffee, and she'd sit at the counter and visit with us. And I told her early on I knew who she was. And I said, I don't know why you aren't singing in some of the productions of the Omaha Playhouse, because the Omaha Playhouse, all the Fondas made their debut there. Marlon Brando, Donna Reed, so many people. It's got a good reputation. So anyway, one day she said no, all of that was behind her. She'd raised her kids now, and her mother was gone. She had to take care of the house and get all that stuff grown up, taken care of, because she had 2 sons in the community. And she came running in one afternoon, and she said, "Oh my goodness, Carmen McRae is sick." And I said, "Well, I don't know Carmen McRae, but I'm sorry to hear it." And she said, "Well, my agent was in contact with her agent, wants me to come in and finish out 2 weeks she had at this club where she sang." And she said, "And I just don't know." She said, "I'm in the middle of still taking care of Mother's house. I just don't know what to do, if I should go. I really consider my my performance days over," because she wasn't a spring chicken. This is probably 1983, maybe 84. And I told her she was a damn fool. Let the house sit for a couple of weeks. Go back and see your friends. I mean, you're buying all these cards to keep in touch with them. Besides performing nights at the cabaret or whatever it is, you can visit with your friends. So she went. Well, a couple of weeks went by, and she came into the store in the morning, which was so unusual for her, and came upstairs to my office. I had a little office upstairs where I could look out over the bookstore. And by then we were friendly enough and she'd been up there, she felt perfectly secure in going up where it said employees only. And she said, "You can't believe it," but she said, "I've had 3 job offers." And she said, "I'm putting the gladiola," or whatever that flower she always wore in her hair, and off she went. And she said, "I owe it all to you for encouraging me," And I said, "Well, you owe it all to that voice and talent of yours." And for a while we kept in contact. I would send her some Catsbury cards that I thought that she'd like, and little notes of this, little notes of that. And then I began to wane doing that, and you know how things like that go. You just sort of. But then I was really pleased. A couple of years later, Nebraska Public Television, I don't know if they aired a program done by someone else or if they did the program, but they ran a whole special on Julie Wilson, including some recordings taken just weeks earlier at this Stork Club or wherever she works. I don't know, in New York. Now, as far as I know, she is not dead. I no longer see in the New Yorker where she's performing. And you used to see that all the time. And it was always the same club, although I can't remember the name of the club right now. So I'm assuming that, she was about the same age as Eartha Kitt. And Eartha isn't with us anymore, as far as I know. So I would imagine that Julie is either in a nursing home or at home. It seemed to me that she even got married again. But I never checked that to see, because anyway, that's about the only. I've still got those old 45 RPM records of her singing. I never throw anything away. I mean, look at this room. You got to start throwing it away because I can't last forever. Anyway, that's the story. I don't know if you can use it in your blog that way, or if you want to retell the story, or if you still want me to type it up. I will. Let me know.